Hey there, Knicks fans. How you doing? It's your boy Jonathan Macri with you for another episode of the Knicks Film School Podcast. Let me introduce. Actually, no, I'm not going to introduce our guest yet.
Don't do it. Don't do it.
Wait, hold on. Karma's a bitch because all week long I was somewhat poo-pooing because he was that bad. The idea that RJ Barrett was sick. And so what does the universe do to me? They strike me down with some unholy, I don't know what this is, but my wife had it last week and now I have it. It's not fun. Let me tell you. It feels like the flu, but it's not the flu, according to her, because I don't know. She knows more about this stuff than me. Anyway.
Yeah, you try guarding back doors while you feel like this.
Well, so here's the thing.
You try finishing over rim protectors, John.
Luckily, I don't have to come on here and have my version of the flu game. I just have to be Steve Kerr waiting in the corner for the kick out and just make the easy shot because I have the Michael Jordan of basketball analysis, Knicks basketball analysis with me on this podcast, Benjy Ritholtz.
Wow, what an introduction. I thought you weren't introducing me. But no, I appreciate it. Nonetheless, happy to be here. Happy to carry you, I guess. Not that, you'll be fine. Once we get into it, I think it'll all turn around for you. You'll see. Just got to start talking. That's
it. Just put one foot in front of the other.
That's it.
Take a couple dribbles.
It's natural. You're a natural.
I'm going to try to figure this out in my head real quick. Were you like 6 for the flu game? 7?
It was 90.
I think it was this. This is going to make me look bad because I should remember. I'm pretty sure it was not the last finals. It was the penultimate finals.
I thought it was 98 as well. Yeah, I was
97. Yeah,
97. I was all of 5 years old.
Yeah, so you remember?
I remember it fondly.
That's great. Have I never asked you this? We're getting off track, but we'll get back on very quickly. What is your first Knicks memory? Do you remember it? I don't distinctly remember mine, so if you don't remember yours,
I really don't. And honestly, I only really religiously started watching the Knicks in the David Lee, Nate Robinson year, whatever year that was.
Well, there were a few of those years.
That was like actually when my Knicks fandom truly began. So lucky me.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
I've been exposed to some of the best. That's where my knowledge comes from, just watching these teams just fundamentally sound, taking care of the little things.
being just clean and crisper on the edges. Absolutely. So that's a good transition to right now because you have some memories of some pretty crappy Knicks teams that did not, like when they took the floor, there was just really no chance that they were going to win any games. This team is not that. And yet through 18 games, they are 9-9, some nice wins, some respectable performances, some not so great performances. And yet there is much, here's my favorite word, consternation about what is going on. And I think it is rooted in the how more than the what, whether that has to do with certain players here on the roster, it's a certain person calling, drawing up the X's and O's, maybe even certain people behind the scenes and the decisions that they have made or potentially will make in the future. So I'll just start out very generally and ask you, have you enjoyed this next season so far? And do you think it's like you're allowed to enjoy 9-9? Do you think there's anything wrong with that?
Yeah, I've enjoyed watching this team for the most part. Absolutely. I think Jalen Brunson is one of the most interesting and fun players to watch in basketball because it is a homogenous league. Like, generally speaking, you're going to have a really good ball handler, be it a wing or a point guard, running spread pick and roll. And they're usually pull up 3 shooters, or they drive and they kick, or they lob. And the Knicks have this guy who's 6'1" and playing in the post and doesn't do the standard primary ball handler things that you're used to, but is really, really good at what he does. And so he's been a blast to watch. And I think this is what we're going to get into, but I think there's a lot of stuff to be very positive about in this season. Even if the focus too often is on the stuff that we should be annoyed about. And I think overall, you're looking now, it's like, this is like a very neat reflection point here. We're 18 games in. We got a couple of day break, Thanksgiving. We're about a quarter of the season. So like you kind of look back and you say, all right, they've basically, the record is what it probably should be. The rotations have adjusted a ton in just the first quarter of the season. So that's great. And in a very positive way, I think we'd all agree. And it looks like some of the guys who are struggling are starting to come out of it. There have been a lot of positive developments. And the team's, I think, on a night-to-night basis, pretty fun to watch. So yeah, I am definitely more positive about this than negative. Understanding what you should have felt going in, and aside from kind of directionally where like the organization is, which I think is a separate question from enjoying and analyzing the basketball.
I agree.
They're intertwined, but I think it's important to compartmentalize it.
Yeah, and I should say 500 record, so that's good. 8th in the East, about, if that lasts the whole season, then we should throw a party. 23rd net rating, so not ideal there, but 18th in offense. I think if you would have told me before the season started that they were the 18th ranked offense, and they're right there in a group with a few other teams where it's like they're basically in a 4-way tie for 16th.
In fact, cleaning the glass has them at 15th. So
yeah, factoring out garbage time.
Yeah, right. So, and they've had plenty of garbage time, which, one of the reasons there have been a few blowouts that have kind of skewed this, and those count. But I think there's what to be encouraged about. Yeah, the offense being about league average, I think is great, especially considering how guys have shot the ball. I mean, I think Obi's the one guy who has shot better than we'd think he would shoot from three. And
now what is his 3-point percent? I haven't even looked in the last few days.
Yeah, he's regressing a bit. Yeah. I don't think anybody who thought he was going to become a 40% shooter this year, I think was crazy. He's going to, if he settles out at league average or above, I think it's great. It's a great development. Yeah. Otherwise, nobody shot the three well. So those guys are going to come up. RJ's percentage is going to come up. IQ's percentage is going to come up. Brunson's percentage, Corners. Right. Brunson's percentage I spoke about, the corners will come up. I do think there's been a change in his shot diet that's affecting the percentage. I don't know if he'll reach last year's mark, but nonetheless, it'll come up, I think.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And Grimes hasn't been there at all. And he hasn't. Right. Has he made a three this year? He's probably made like one or two in the limited time he's had. He hasn't made.
And you took out your two best shooters from the lineup for a stretch. You were missing your two best 3-point shooters. I think Grimes and Fournier are by a decent margin their two best 3-point shooters, and they were out of the lineup for a decent amount of time together. So yeah, the offense has been pretty good, all things considered. I think the biggest disappointment to me. I don't want to dwell on disappointments because that's not what the pod is about, but the rebounding has been the biggest disappointment, and kind of the weirdest outlier. If you look at their statistical profile, it's kind of like, where is this coming from? They were the 4th best defensive rebounding team in the league last year, and they're now 29th. That is hard to believe.
I completely agree, and it's a good transition to. Again, we're going to be staying mostly positive on this episode, but yes. I do want to, because there has been much talk, and you just brought up like the threes, like the Knicks could be so much better were it not for. Oh, Andrew's telling us Grimes has made 4 threes this year. Well, there we go. Through 18 games. That's probably less than you would have expected coming in. I don't know where most fans would have the ranking of Tibbs and Julius as far as the blame game. It's like if were it not for this individual, everything would be so much better. And I don't know if anybody else deserves to be in that conversation. The RJ thing is kind of exists in its own ether because people are blaming him. They are, but they are. It's also like, I don't think people want to get rid of him. People just want him to be better. And certainly the last game against Oklahoma City was a good sign. Do you think that there is that the pieces that are here now, and I know you can take it any direction you want, are materially holding this team back? And before you answer, I do want to at least acknowledge, like, I think what a lot of people are saying, which is like, look at the Jazz, look at the Pacers, look at the Kings. These teams are doing, wonderful things in their own right. But how much of that is talent? How much of that is the fact that like they're, 2 of those teams got a new coach, and then the third, has Rick Carlisle, but they also materially changed their roster from like the beginning of last year to now. So like how are you factoring in all of that? How do you assess all that?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think Utah has the coaching and their offensive system and flow. I think you do give them a lot of credit. I think they've play to their kind of random assortment of players, to all their strengths. I do, well, I don't have the records in front of me. Indiana's a couple games ahead of the Knicks now?
Yeah, I have everything right here. So Utah's 12-7. Indiana is 10-6. And then the owners of they play tonight, so people will listen to this, and I don't know what the result will be. But as of right now, we're recording this. The Kings are 9-6 with what would be the highest scoring offense in the history of basketball.
Yeah, I mean, but again, you look at the Kings' offensive talent. I just don't. Sabonis and Fox are like excellent, and Herter's having one of the best shooting seasons in the league. So like, I think the Kings and Pacers are slightly different, and the Jazz are kind of their own category right now. I don't want to overreact to a 3-game difference after 18 games. If you look at strength of schedule, I don't know. Maybe all these teams have a harder schedule than the Knicks. I don't know. Indy,
and just because I heard it on the Low Post earlier today, Indy schedule has been very easy.
Yeah, so this stuff will fluctuate record wise, but I think Tibbs has done some really nice things this year. I think you have to give him a lot of credit for the fact that Julius Randle's shot diet has changed significantly. And that's not just Randle deciding that. That's a concerted effort by the entire staff to get him to take different types of shots. They've designed sets to get him different kinds of steps, different kinds of shots, to get rolling more, to take less mid-range. There's much less ISO from him this year. Like, he's basically eliminated the long two from his diet. Like, that stuff is really important and have a huge, considerable change from last season that has benefited the team. And again, a league average offense, partly because Randle's been generally pretty good on offense. And the reason he's been generally good on offense is because he's changed his game. And I do think that Tibbs gets credit for that. I think there are teams that certainly have more complex offenses and off-ball movement. I think there are teams that have less complex offenses. I think the Knicks generally run some very good stuff, and I think sometimes they execute it well and sometimes they don't. There's a lot of window dressing in their sets, and I don't know if they're cutting and screening the way they should to kind of maximize those sets, meaning the players themselves.
And you're generalizing, because we talk about it all the time. Certain players do these things really well on the Knicks, and others are not doing them as well.
Yeah. I put out a clip the other day where it was like a lineup with IQ, Brunson, Sims, Obi, and like Obi cut through the middle. Nobody really noticed that two guys went to the ball. Obi was wide open. Obi didn't even notice. And it's like, it's like, run stuff to get, like, everything has a purpose, like run it. And the Knicks definitely don't do that all the time. So it's not all the coach's fault. I think, is he the most offensively creative coach? Absolutely not. But that's something that we knew going in. I think he's definitely improved. I don't think the Knicks run like bland, crappy stuff. I really don't. I think they've really spiced up the playbook in the last couple of years. So yeah, I mean, holding them back, it depends who would be in their place. Like, I don't think Tibbs is worse than a league average coach right now. I just don't necessarily think that.
And we spoke about on the defensive end during the playback the other night against Oklahoma City, like, what was it? Mike Muscala hit a 3 and you just were like, well, yeah, you're going to, give that up in this scheme. Like, I think that the defense is probably, I feel like, has annoyed people maybe almost as much, if not more, than the offense. And yet I wonder, because like the last 2 seasons, they started off slower on defense and then picked up a lot of steam as the year went on. Yeah. I wonder if that's maybe going to be the case this year too. I don't know.
I think that's probably part of it. I think not having Mitch at all, if you consider foul trouble, they've really only had him for 3 games out of 18 this season.
That's wild.
Because he's basically been unusable in foul trouble for most of the time he's been around. And he's the anchor. And not only that, like Hartenstein came in and is learning the system and adjusting to stuff. And Sims is still figuring it all out. Like Mitchell was supposed to be your anchor who knew the scheme best and could cover for a lot of the mistakes. And he hasn't been there. And I think that's made a big impact. And look, I struggle with the Tibbs thing. There are things that frustrate me to no end. And he's a stubborn person and a stubborn coach, and he sticks to his principles and he doesn't vary much. I think there are good things about that. I think there are bad things about that. I think this year, just looking at this year, I think last year was basically a disaster from a coaching perspective.
I would agree.
I think this year, he's made a concerted effort in the right ways. I think the playbook has gotten better. I think There's still stuff that drives me crazy, like running sets for Julius Randle that they shouldn't. But okay,
we're going to talk about Randle in a second.
I can deal with that. But the rotations have changed. He benched Devin Fournier. He's playing 3 centers. He's playing Randle and Obi here and there. He's staggering much more significantly. Brunson comes out really early. He comes back, like the stuff that we always said, like all coaches do this except for Tibbs. Well, Tibbs is now doing it. And I do think it's fair and right to point out, like, when he's actually doing the stuff that we've been calling for him to do for a long time. Now, has it taken too long? That's an interesting question. I think there's a lot of different factors that go into it for a head coach that don't go into it for fans and analysts of the game that like he's dealing with from the front office perspective, from the player perspective, from confidence perspectives, all of that. Like, when you coach, it's just different than it is tweeting about coaching. But nonetheless, he has done those things. And I think it's worthwhile to mention them, even while recognizing that there are still flaws and there's still ways to go, and that he's not the best coach in the NBA. And he's not. But there are things that he does well, and I think he deserves credit for that.
You brought up the Obi Randle minutes. I think if they're like with all the staggering and rotation stuff, I think the only gripe most people still have just on that part, I would think, is the lack of Obi minutes overall, and the fact that Randle will still play the large portions of these games where we have eyes and we are watching what he's doing, and you preach accountability and the whole thing. My theory since the beginning of last year has been that is far, far, far more complicated and goes way up higher on the food chain and has to do with a lot more things than just Thibodeau, being that's not an easy call. At the same time, I do wonder, and it goes to your point of like the madness of King Tibbs. It is clear that he, I think, likes having this player on the floor who can draw 2 to the ball, So it's like, where do you apportion blame there? I don't really know.
Yeah, there does seem to be a blind spot. I have trouble justifying it. I don't understand. I don't know. Like, the people like throw out a lack of accountability. I guess that's what it is. But is it just that he sees something that we're not seeing or doesn't? Like, I don't know. It's hard to understand. But especially now that you have Jalen Brunson, who is different, but actually in some ways overlaps. Actually, it's kind of funny. I think about Brunson, RJ, and Julius as kind of a tall, grande, and venti versions of the same player. They basically do the same things. They're lefties that get to the rim, have struggle shooting, but generally can get to the rim, draw 2, and like maybe sometimes, most of the time, make the play they should make. Although Brunson does it most consistently and turns it over much less than those guys, and is better than those 2 guys. But they really are all trying to do the same thing. A lot of the Knicks sets set up so that they can get downhill to their left, like a lot of them, which is, again, playing to their strengths. That's what they do best. But there's some redundancy on the floor for sure. But because of that, I think Julius becomes even more expendable. Like, I think you've added a true advantage creator in Brunson, not a perfect one, but a good one. And I think Obi complements that skill set in a way that Julius can't. Now, Obi has some issues. I think if Obi wasn't shooting 40% from 3, I think we'd be looking at his season so far very differently, because I think he struggled at the rim, and I think his defense has been so-so. So query how much kind of this crazy positive shooting start that probably will regress a bit has impacted our analysis of Obi Toppin this year. But he does need to play more. I think he complements lineups better, especially with RJ and Brunson in them, than Julius does. And I do think it's a very fair criticism to say Julius does some stuff that's inexcusable every game, and he seems to get unlimited leash on it. And that's a problem.
You put one on a tee for me. So, and then after this, we are going to get to the stuff that we're thankful for before Thanksgiving. I'm
thankful for all of this. This is great stuff. I like
it's great. No, but but this I don't mind. I like this conversation so much more than like, are we allowed to, it's like, they won a game. Like, I feel good about that. I don't want to feel bad about feeling good about winning against the Thunder or whatever. I keep theorizing about like a lot of people are like, oh, just fire the coach and it'll fix everything. I don't believe that. But I do wonder occasionally if there was one major roster shift in some way, shape, or form, could this team go and move into a different tier of team, with the understanding that they do not have any elite talent. They don't have any star player. And I'm not talking about acquiring a star player. That's not the type of shift that I'm talking about. But just like the notion of like, okay, you look at the numbers when Randle's off the court defensively, and then you go with what you just talked about, about Obi Toppin potentially making a lot more sense on offense with this team. And you put those two things together and you can start to have notions about a team like, oh, I wonder if they could be more like a league average team in net rating and, maybe mess around, win some close games and like have something that replicates what they did 2 years ago. Is there like one move that you've thought about? Like, man, I wish I could just exchange Julius for this sort of player, not a star player, because obviously that would be nice. Or like, a
wing.
So yeah. So what do you like? What would you do?
It's not like what I would do. Like I think stylistically, I thought about this a lot in the last few days. I think it's pretty rare now and hard to build a team where a kind of a true power forward, but one not like Giannis, one who can't really guard wings because he's not fast enough and can't really guard the rim because he's not tall enough. I think it's very hard to play that player 37 minutes and be a really good team. I just think defensively, and this applies to Obi and Julius. Yeah, they're not really quite like, so a lot of teams now downsize at the 4. And you see like constantly, like the rotations are crisp until Julius's guy or Obi's guy get the ball and they're just slower. Now, Julius, it's because of inattentiveness often and less because of, with Obi, it's just, he's not that quick to change direction. So he tries much harder than Julius. He's better than Julius defensively. But they both have this issue. And I think if the Knicks played more lineups where you had 4 wing size players, Brunson could be one of those 4 players, and a center, which they have 3 of them, or even depending on against the lineup who they're playing, 4 wing size players and Obi or Randle at the 5.
I'm going to get to that in a second.
Yeah, I think stylistically it's easier. I think this, like the Knicks are playing a true 4 and a true 5 basically every game, all game. That's pretty rare now.
And like, is there another? I mean, I don't have to go through all the teams, right? But is there a handful of teams maybe that still do it?
That does it starter and bench. I can't think of any other team that plays 2 true power forwards like that. Like Atlanta has John Collins who starts. Who's their 4 off the bench? I don't think it's like, I don't know if DeAndre Hunter slides to the 4 or like whatever they do. I can't imagine. And like, look, John Collins is again this exact archetype. Like he's just struggling to find a role, even though he's very good. Because it's just a weird position now in the NBA. It's like a kind of the way the game's played, it's a bit hard for that player to get a ton of minutes and have to guard whoever they're guarding on the floor. And if you're not going to play them at center, which Atlanta doesn't either anymore because of Okongwu's development. Yeah. So he just kind of becomes a 4 who's chasing people around all the time. And I think the Knicks, in a perfect world, I think one of these power forwards would go, which they will eventually. You replace them with a wing, and then you can be much more versatile. But to constantly have to play a 4 and a 5 in today's game, I think is hard. And I think the Knicks are feeling that this year.
That's so well said. You cannot convince me, not you, but any person out there cannot convince me that the ideal role for Obi Toppin in basketball today is 25, 30 minutes a game, where about half that time, give or take 5 minutes, is at the 5. Yep. With 4 dynamite or 3 dynamite as you could get. Just good to great defensive wings. I don't even care who the point guard. Brunson could run point for that team and try as best as you can to insulate him. And if those wings could shoot and he's at the 5 for that amount of time, I don't know how you stop that offense. I think that's a really, really, really devastating offense. Now they'll probably get scored upon a bit, and I don't know how sustainable it is in the playoffs or whatever. And yes, it depends on the shooting. If that's the long-term vision that the Knicks might have, and I'm not convinced that isn't their vision long-term. I really am not, which sounds crazy when they spend all this money on centers, but like, I think there's reasons for that. In any case, that's where I think I would like to head. And obviously if that's where we're heading, then Julius probably should be elsewhere. But whatever, he's here right now. I guess we'll just, I don't know, hope for the best moving forward.
Yeah. I mean, the really crazy thing with Obi, if you think about his career so far, is that Tibbs basically said from the beginning, you're going to function as a wing on both ends. He's essentially in the corner. He barely screen and rolls. And
he should.
He should. He should. Although his finishing has been underwhelming this season. I'm just going to say it. It has. He's not an elite finisher right now. And I thought that was kind of the given with him. And he's not. He's not. That needs to be said. However, I think he needs to get more reps there. I think his passing can shine there. And he's basically become a catch and shoot player who can attack closeouts, which is more of a wing's responsibility generally. And the craziest thing about it is it's kind of worked because he's developed in that role. The weird part about it is I wish he was in a different role. That's not, he's gotten better in the role that Tibbs has stuck him in, which is
just a little bit both.
Which is to his credit, and to become the best player he can be, this is going to be very valuable for him.
Yes.
That's not, I don't think Tibbs has done a good job with this because I think he's really kind of stuck him in this spot. And I think he's a more versatile player than that. And I think they should invest more in him. But if he ever gets that opportunity to play with a little more freedom, these couple of years are going to be very helpful for him because he's developed certain skills in this role where he's become good at catch and shoot, at least not in the corners. God, not in the corners, but above the break, really solid. And then attacking closeouts, 1-2 dribbles, making the next play. He's gotten pretty good at that. And that's gonna come in handy. But I think we need to allow him to evolve now. It's time. Let's go. Let's move on.
I love it. I talk about things that I would be thankful for if they just. We don't have to do fake trades because we've done so many fake Julius trade episodes. I don't have the energy for another one, but all right. So you talked about Brunson already. Let's talk about him just a little bit more. I was going through it today because it came up on the post-game pod, and then I dug into it a little bit, and then I looked at some of the advanced stats, and I tweeted something out today that I should probably have my own Twitter account up, but whatever. In advanced stats, like value over replacement player, win shares, box plus minus. All of those, if you go look at like who's in the East and like specifically the East guards, all of those say he's one of the top 4 guards in the East. Now, is he actually one of the top 4 guards in the East? I think that's a different conversation. But I'm starting to talk myself into that there is not just like, oh, Jalen Brunson has a case. Jalen Brunson deserves to be discussed in the All-Star conversation. I'm starting to think, again, it's 18 games. We have another, 30 games to go before this thing finally happens. I think it's a real case. And I think I think that maybe last night against Oklahoma City was the first moment where I'm like, oh, wow, this is the thing we're going to need to talk about.
Yeah. So it's kind of funny when they signed him, a lot of the reaction was so much money for a sub all-star player. That was like, and immediately I was like, are we sure he can't be an all-star if he gets the minutes and the opportunities? Because all the numbers were saying, this guy is extraordinarily efficient and just doesn't really get that high a usage. I mean, last year his usage was 24%. It's not even gone up that much.
He has
he has the ball.
Yes,
all the time.
And the assist numbers are obviously reflection of that.
And I mean, the only question was, okay, but he's going to have more attention on him, and he's not going to play off Luka anymore. And the spacing is not going to be quite as good. So how is it going to go? Can he actually? And the answer, obviously and emphatically, is this guy is just that good. He just is. And I don't think there's any questions in the All-Star conversation. It helps that Garland was hurt for a while. You start looking at the guards. I'm sure there are guys that I'm not thinking of. Halliburton certainly gets in there right now. The fact that you
named one of my East All-Star guards. I think Halliburton actually has to be.
Yeah. And the fact that Kyrie's been whatever he's been is helpful too.
But that's a good call.
He's in the conversation, and if we're talking about things we're thankful for, he is far and beyond number one. And
finish what you're going to say.
I was going to say it's not just the numbers. It's truly in every game that they've won, there's been a moment where it feels like it's slipping away in the third or fourth quarter, late third, early fourth, whenever it is. They go on, the other team goes on a run, and Brunson's like, okay, we're not going to run anything. Get me a ball. I'm going to hit a floater right now, and I'm going to calm everyone the hell down. And he does it. It's actually amazing. It's an amazing trait. He's able to do it time and again. And I can't, that value goes beyond even the crazy efficiency numbers that he has. It's like, this guy just has such a great feel for the game. And when the Knicks need a bucket, and he just gets it.
I wrote about it after last night's game against the Thunder. My favorite new parlor game. How many wins did the Knicks have this season were it not for Jalen Brunson? And it's a small number. It's very small.
Number, all right.
In win shares is the one where he's really shining. Here are the players that he's 14th in win shares in the league. Here are the guys who have more win shares than him, starting at the top. Luka, Steph, KD, Tatum, Donovan Mitchell, SGA, Tyrese Halliburton, Lauri Markkanen. Get your most improved player bets in while you still can. I don't think the value's there anymore though. Devin Booker, Anthony Davis, Nikola Jokic, Jimmy Butler, and then Domantas Sabonis. Those are the players ahead of Jalen Brunson in win shares, which is
those are some names.
Those are some names. Let's go to the youth. Who's the young player who you're most thankful for ahead of this holiday season?
So looking back at the season, what I'm most thankful for, because most of the stuff I kind of knew already, what I didn't know is that Cam Reddish could be a solid role player in the league. And I think he showed us that he can be. And that I am very thankful for, because that trade was looking a little scary, a little bit of, I would say, a misunderstanding between the front office and the head coach as to what should be. Injuries allowed this to happen in a way, and it's going to be really interesting to see post break when he's back what they do. I think
let's talk about it real quick. Yeah. I mean, so Grimes is not going anywhere.
Can't. Absolutely can't. He can't.
Can't.
Both for present and for future, he can't. He's invaluable to this team.
There is no more Grimes conversation. No. It was ridiculous. You pointed it out several times. We don't need to rehash it. It was utterly ridiculous what was going on in the last 2 weeks. And
yes,
now it is over, and we will move on. So Grimes, RJ Barrett, Immanuel Quickley, assuming he's remains on the roster for the foreseeable future, which his name has come up. Jalen Brunson, Cam Reddish. Did I forget anybody? I think I named 5 players outside of the 4 bigs, and I didn't name Derrick Rose.
Yeah.
So
that's the answer.
9-man rotation without Rose, or 10-man rotation with Rose. It's one of those 2 answers, right?
Yeah, I don't really care. I think I'm pretty much happy to move on. I love what Derrick Rose did for this team 2 years ago. I still think there's a little bit left in the tank, although I do definitely think we're seeing pretty significant decline this year in terms of his athleticism. He'll still dip into it, and he'll do something every game that's like, holy crap, what a talented individual. But I think he's still a very good pick and roll passer, whatever. He does bring value still. I just not for this team where they are right now. I think letting Quickley run at least a few minutes before bringing Brunson back in the game in a 9-man rotation is a really good way to do it. And let him sink or swim and see what happens. I think he's shown enough. As much as I get frustrated sometimes with decision-making on the offensive end, speaking of IQ, I think he's shown enough where you let him learn it and you let him figure it out. And then you bring Brunson in to kind of steady the ship. I think that's a really good way to do it.
Do you like Cam with those backups, either as a way to get him more opportunity? You're shaking your head already. Okay.
Yeah. I think Grimes has to be in the starting lineup. I think he's the perfect complement to this lineup. I think, the thing, everyone was saying Cam needs to start. That lineup is just it's gonna be a terrible shooting lineup. Like, Cam has become a decent shooter from the corners. That's really it. He's not going to give you good accuracy from above the break. It's not that quick a release. He's pretty closeout prone, meaning he doesn't get it off a ton. Like, I just think you need Grimes to loosen things up, because he can always get the shot off if you find him. And the speed with which he makes decisions on the catch. Cam's gotten better at that, but like, Grimes is the perfect complement to a team where the ball sticks too much, where like even advantages sometimes close because guys hold the ball. Like, he is exactly what that lineup needs. We've said it from the beginning. That's why we all thought he would be starting. Obviously defensively, but Cam can do some of the same things. I think Grimes is better, but I think Cam's can do some of the same things. But I think offensively, it's like absolutely what you need. So I think he has to start. And then, you bring Cam to the second unit, and I think he gets some different opportunities, and he's not just a catch and shoot guy. And I still think he needs to keep it simple, because I think that's been the key to his growth this year, is just keeping it simple. 2 dribble rule, as I like to say. Like, anything more than that gets a little wonky, but 2 dribbles to the rim or shoot the basketball. But he'll be able to play a little bit more on the second side with the second unit, get a little bit more in transition because they run more generally. Like, I think it's just I think that's the right fit.
And you could see it, because we both know that Mitchell Robinson is going to once again regain his starting position. They're going to have to navigate the issues that come with that, as we've talked about, and he just, he needs to be better. He needs to stay on the court and needs to be better when he's out there. I can't get into a bitch conversation with you because you're just going to make you upset.
It's so frustrating, man. It's so frustrating because now we have to wait another 6 games for him to get back into shape until he hurts something else. And then he has to get back into shape. So like we've had an in shape good Mitch for like 2 months of his career, and he got $15 million for it
a year. Yeah. $60 million total.
What we're thankful for. Moving on. Yeah. Keep going.
But yeah, you could see it. I can't even get my words out. Like the backup unit that they, of Hartenstein, Obi, maybe Cam and Quickley with RJ in there to, that's fun. Now we're having some fun.
Yeah, like Brunson and RJ as Philly, like mixing up as the 5th guy there. Love it. Love it. Give me that.
Love it too. Okay, so you answered that question. I was going to say Cam too, just for what it's worth. All right, well, we could kind of finish up. Like, what is the thing you want to be thankful for moving forward? What is the thing you're most excited about for the rest of this year? What do you want to, I ask you some version of this question at the end of every podcast I have you on, because I'm always curious what you're going to say. What are you thinking about? What are you curious if they try? It could be something with a positive connotation. It could be something that you're looking forward to, even though it may be a negative in the interim, like somebody gets fired or gets traded or whatever. Like, where's your mind at?
I'm going to answer that question. Can I first say one more thing that I'm thankful for? Because I have a list down.
Oh, wow. I didn't know you had more stuff.
I've only missed one thing, and I just want to speak to it quickly because that was a good pun. Holy moly. In unintentional. IQ's defense. Defense, which has been, other than Brunson's offense, I think the most constant thing of this season for the Knicks. Because that guy has been good defensively in every single game that he's played. The advanced stats scream it at you.
I'm pulling them up right now.
And then the eye test just tells you it's not that he is so you watch Quentin Grimes last night against SGA, and it's very obvious. It's very obvious how good he is, how quick laterally he is, how he gets his hand in the passing lanes, how he gets his hand on the ball, how he moves, how he contests. That stuff's so obvious with him. With IQ, because most of his defensive value comes off the ball. And I think Tibbs knows that, which is why he generally doesn't put him on the ball, because he wants him off ball, rotating in the passing lanes. He is so clean with his switches. He's so smart. He knows what's coming before the offense knows what's coming. He's moving before the pass is made. And he's really the one Nick. Grimes can do this too, but not like IQ is just one of the most intelligent defenders you'll watch. And the limitations are there physically, but and I don't think he's the most wonderful on ball point of attack defender. But how valuable he's been on the back line, rotating around, and then obviously rebounding. I would say he's been the one Nick this year who's pulled his weight on the boards. I'm very thankful for that. I'm very thankful for that because it's been a pleasure to watch, and it's made up for the shooting struggles that are real, and he needs to clean up, and he will. But defensively, he's been a constant, and he deserves props for that.
There is one player in the NBA this season that has a more impressive, more positive. It's negative, but it's a positive on-off differential, specifically on the defensive end of the court, and that is, interestingly enough, Rudy Gay. The Jazz are 21.7 points per 100 possessions stingier when Rudy Gay is on the floor. Second in that stat is Immanuel Quickley. The Knicks are 19.7 points per 100 possessions better when he's on the floor. And that's pretty impressive.
And you can take out a little bit of the noise too with it, because it applies to every lineup he's in. It's not just there's noise in those stats, obviously, because the units that you play might be better defensively and therefore the on-off gets skewed. But it doesn't matter the lineup he plays with. That team's playing better defensively, better overall, but definitely better defensively when IQ's with them. So Julius's defensive numbers are better when he's with IQ, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Everybody's.
It's just he's making an impact out there, and and it's not easy to do from his from an off-ball wing position, but he is so good at rotating around and mucking things up that it makes a huge impact. It's changed their season,
and that is in particular why I think so many fans would be ready to, me maybe included, absolutely lose their shit if they trade him for I don't want to say salary cap reasons, but reasons that don't entirely have to do with basketball and more from like an asset management perspective. Like this is the young player who, for a variety of reasons, makes the most sense for us to trade right now, because man, there's a part of me that I'm like, if this guy ever does become the consistent shooter that I believe that he can be, and we'll see if he does. It's like the numbers are what the numbers are. My Lord, is that a frighteningly important player for a team that's trying to win basketball games? But we'll hope for the best there. So yeah, one thing. Yeah, one thing.
I'll actually answer your question after that soliloquy.
I love the soliloquy though.
I think look, if there's one thing that needs to happen, I don't know if it's even a controversial, like RJ needs to really perform. RJ needs to perform in a way different from what he did second half of last year, which was, I think, significant, but definitely somewhat volume based. Like the efficiency was nothing special. I think if you don't see growth, it's more than just regressing back to or progressing back to his mean, which I think he will shoot the ball better because he's a better shooter than he's shown. I think you really need to see meaningful change in approach, in efficiency, in understanding who he is as a basketball player. Like he needs to start learning it to become a truly impactful, winning basketball player. And at this point, it's like he needs to show it now. Like I'm basically, I think people are still making. You got to be out of excuses at some point. Like I know it's under Tibbs. You could say that once Tibbs is gone, this guy's going to transform, or without Randle, he's going to transform. But like you're watching the games, like it's the same stuff, and it's not coach specific. It's make good decisions when you get into the paint, because you're really good at getting into the paint. Finish better. Play more quickly. Play with more pace. Play with more decisiveness. Like, just I need to see it. I need to see it. That's what I want to be. But when I look back at the end of the year and say, what am I thankful for? I want to say, I now figured out who RJ Barrett is on a winning basketball team. Like, this is who he is. You
just said a mouthful. That would be nice from the guy they just gave the extension to. Not trying to make it all a referendum on the extension, but it is arguably the most important. Not even arguably.
I don't think it's not arguable.
It is the most important pivot point for this team, because if RJ becomes a version of what you're talking about, who is a guy who impacts winning, albeit at a sub-star level, that's like, what team in the league doesn't want that guy in that package?
Certainly worth the money.
It's worth all, but that and then some.
And I should add, one thing I didn't say is defensively. Like, come on, man. Come on. Let's go. You're better than that. You're better than that. You're better than that. I know it. I've seen it. You're better than that. You're more physical than that. You're stronger than that. You're smarter than that. Stop getting beat backdoor. Stop getting pummeled over on regular drives from freaking Lou Dort, and hold your ground and freaking play defense, because you can. So like, enough. I got to see it now. It's not Tibbs' fault that he's been a bad defender this season. Like, he's better than that. So let's freaking see it. We have 3 quarters of the season left. You were sick. Now you're not. You're feeling great. You're peak health. You couldn't be feeling better. Like, let's freaking go. Let's see it. Let's see the improvement. And I will be very thankful at the end of the year looking back, like, this guy was worth the investment, because I like the extension, because even though I know that he's not a very good basketball player right now, I thought he could be one, but I want to see it. That
has left me speechless. Well, RJ may be at peak health. I am not. So I'm going to
go to sleep, man.
I'm going to sign us the hell off. Andrew, Claudio, anything before we get out of here?
I was like, stop ranting. I'm trying to go to sleep.
No, that was the best.
I need my medication and I'm going to sleep.
I don't have any medication. That's the worst part.
I just have one question, and I just texted to both of you. Benjy, why do you hate RJ Barrett?
Cut that. Cut it. I love him. You know what? I care because I love him. That's where it comes from. I love him. I love everything about him. I really do. At least like I need to see them. I need to see the steps. Let's go.
I like this energy. I don't.
It's the best
cutting a single thing. Yeah.
That anybody could bring. Like it's flawless. It is flawless peak Benjy in every way. Do I need to still ask Benjy where I could find him and his stuff? Oh,
see with the format.
Sorry.
Oh man, find my stuff. Ben Ritholtz NBA. I'm on Twitter, and I tweet out all sorts of nonsense. And on Knicks Film School feed, I'll put stuff out there as well. And just Knicks Film School is great. Come hang out with us whenever we're doing stuff, because I'm there a lot too. And yeah, that's it. Thanks for having me, guys. This was fun.
Become a patron so you could watch along with us when Benjy is part of our playback watch parties.
Yes.
Also follow us on TikTok where all of his breakdowns end up as well.
Sure.
Yes. All of the above.
Can't speak to that. And wishing everybody a very happy Thanksgiving. Be thankful for all the things that you have. Enjoy your families. You guys are awesome. Everybody who listens and watches and all that. So thanks.
I am thankful for the two of you, for our entire KFS family, and of course for you out there who makes Knicks Film School what it is, because we are a community of Knicks fans first and foremost. Occasionally frustrated Knicks fans, but a community nonetheless, and we are happy to have each other. And so thanks for listening. Thanks for what has been, another great year as we wind down towards 2023. And we will be back with you with another episode before you know it. Peace out.
Let's go, RJ. You got it in you, buddy.
Thanks for a great year.
I don't know. Cut that part though.
I was like, did I miss something? Are we not coming back on Friday?
I don't know.